Good evening, everybody. With the help of my son, David, who's 12 years old, but far more intelligent than I am, I'm doing a very little impromptu session tonight, just a few very simple little songs, completely unprepared as usual. And then I may talk briefly about something. I expect this will be a slightly shorter session than usual. So I want to start with a lovely little Scottish song, which I'm sure you know. I won't do all the verses, but it's so lovely. So let's just do it. By yon bonny banks and by yon bonny braes, where the sun shines bright on Loch Lomond, where me and my true love will ever want to gae, on the bonny, bonny banks o' Loch Lomond. And the sad last verse now. Now ye take the high road and I'll take the low road, and I'll get to Scotland afore ye. But me and my true love will never meet again, on the bonny, bonny banks o' Loch Lomond. I mean, the Scots have got something, let's face it. It has a certain element of romance, Scotland, but let's go to Cumbrian now. If I start talking with a Cumbrian accent, you'll not understand anything I say. For example, in Cumbrian they say, Istagan yam, instead of, are you going home? Of course, that's actually where I'm from. So let's do John Peel, a famous hunting song. You ken Jan Peel with his kittlesy gay, you ken Jan Peel at the break o' day, you ken Jan Peel when he's far, far away, with his hounds and his horn in the morning. He's buried at Troutbeck, is John Peel. A good place to visit, and of course there are trout in the stream, that's why it's called Troutbeck, I suppose. Let's do one I've done before because it's so lovely and sad, Old English. Early one morning, just as the sun was rising, I heard a maiden sing in the valley below. Oh, don't deceive me, oh, never leave me, how could you treat a poor maiden so? It's just one of those sad little things. And you know something? I've even got a Welsh song somewhere, but let's do an Irish one first, which you all know. In Dublin's fair city, where the girls are so pretty, I first set my eyes on sweet Molly Malone, as she wheeled her wheelbarrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh. She was a fishmonger, but sure 'twas no wonder, for so were her father and mother before, and they each wheeled their barrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh. And the last verse, which is rather sad. She died of a fever, and no one could save her, and that was the end of sweet Molly Malone. Her ghost wheels her barrow through streets broad and narrow, crying cockles and mussels alive, alive, oh. They say she died of something else, and that she had another profession that they say may have been the oldest profession. Now, a rather tricky one here. It's actually Welsh. Now, don't forget that the Welsh are some of the best singers in the world, largely due to their love of mining. They used to mine a lot. It's called All Through the Night. It is rather sweet. Sleep, my love, and peace attend thee all through the night. Guardian angels God will lend thee all through the night. Soft the drowsy hours are creeping, hill and dale in slumber sleeping. Love alone his watch is keeping all through the night. Well, Wales was actually England's first colony, as you probably know. Let's do a little sweet, quickie chap now. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk with you again, because a vision softly creeping left its seeds while I was sleeping, and the vision that was planted in my brain still remains within the sound of silence. But can silence have a sound? Well, if you think about it, total silence is actually impossible. I won't explain why. Und jetzt gehen wir ein bisschen nach Deutschland. Und it's so famous. Do you remember that chap? what's the name, David, of that chap who died, the pop star, Elvis Presley, Elvis the Pelvis. Even he did it when he's doing his military service, but it's so lovely. I'll just do one verse. Muss sie denn zum Städtele hinaus und du, mein Schatz, bleibt hier. Wenn ich komm, wenn ich wieder komm, wenn ich komm, mein Schatz, bei dir. Kann ich gleich nicht allweil bei dir sein, kann ich doch mein Freud an dir. Wenn ich komm, wenn ich wiederum komm, wieder komm, kehr ich ein, mein Schatz, bei dir. And so much for now for the Germans, who we do not wish too much to concentrate on today, because in Greece at the moment they are not being so kind to us, you know, but we shall see, especially with their agent, Mr. Samaras. Anyway, cigarettes and whiskey and wild, wild women. Now, this is for you, because I'm not like this, but think about it, all you chaps. Cigarettes and whiskey and wild, wild women, they'll drive you crazy, they'll drive you insane. Cigarettes and whiskey and wild, wild women, they'll drive you crazy, they'll drive you insane. Once I was happy and had a good wife. I had enough money to last me for life. Then I met a gal and we went on a spree. She taught me smoking and drinking whiskey. Then there's the chorus again, the next verse. Cigarettes are a blight on the whole human race. A man is a monkey with one in his face. Take warning, dear friend, take warning, dear brother. A fire's on one end and a fool's on t'other. And now, good people, I'm broken with age. The lines on my face make a well-written page. I'm weaving this story, how sadly but true, on women and whiskey and what they can do. Right on the cross at the head of my grave, for women and whiskey here lies a poor slave. Take warning, poor stranger, take warning, dear friend. In white clear letters this tale of my end. Cigarettes and whiskey and wild, wild women, they'll drive you crazy, they'll drive you insane. Cigarettes and whiskey and wild, wild women, they'll drive you crazy, they'll drive you insane. Not me, but some of us. You've got to watch, chaps. Now look, do you remember this chap called Rafe McTell? Not long ago, I'll just do one verse. It's called The Streets of London. It's actually quite a nice little number. And here we go. Have you seen the old man in the closed down market, kicking up the papers with his worn out shoes? In his eyes you see no pride, hand held loosely by his side. Yesterday's paper telling yesterday's news. So how can you tell me you're lonely and say for you that the sun don't shine? Let me take you by the hand and lead you through the streets of London. I'll show you something to make you change your mind. And then it goes on about the lady tramp. And now before I just talk a bit, but not too much, don't worry, I won't talk too much. Just a bit of something, because I think it's rather nice as well. Luce nell'astre da feneste toia, la lavanara canta e se ne vanta, e per tramente torce spanne canta. Luce nell'astre da fenesta toia, manna tu sole, più belline. O sole mio, sta fronte a te. O sole mio, sta fronte a te, sta fronte a te. Now look, on a more serious note, before I talk briefly, I'm actually meant to be a classical guitarist, you know. I mean, I'm you know, look, I mean, it's not even in tune. Look, you must have noticed, huh? Tuning is important. If people were in tune with each other, think what a wonderful world it would be. That's one I know it so well, like the back of my hand, that, but even that needs a bit of practice. But I'm doing all sorts of stuff at the moment, like finishing things which I used to play perfectly, like, this. Etc. This is one I know beautifully. And of course, what about this one? And it goes on. There are so many beauties, I mean. I know many, but I will need some preparation, because when you're doing classical guitar, you can't just be impromptu like this. You have to really play them to your satisfaction before doing something like this. So with flamenco, it's slightly easier. I mean, I could do farruca now, the whole thing. There are so many introductions, but I mean, the main farruca is, I mean. I mean, it just goes on. It's beautiful. The farruca, some people can make it go on for half an hour. When I do it, I'll probably do it for about 10 minutes, And it goes on. But what we'll also do, I think, is malagueña, which you sing. But look, let's stop the guitar for the time being. David, if you can just pop this down there, chap. Thank you so much. I just wanted to say a few very brief, semi-serious words at the moment. Look at briefly at Greece and the world. Now, the main thing to watch at the moment, I think, in the world is this desperate attempt by the anti-Russian front, which is essentially NATO, Britain, the US and Israel, to get a major foothold in Syria and then in Iran, which of course will lead to a world war. Now, don't forget that NATO was beyond its shelf life in 1999, when the treaty should have stopped. But instead of disbanding NATO or reforming it and changing it, they decided to perform an illegal attack on Kosovo. And it was proven to have been illegal. The Americans pretended that the USK, KLA were terrorists by saying so, and then changed their mind 4 months later. They did the same in Iraq in 1990. Ever since then, we've seen an attempt to make NATO a worldwide organization. NATO is now the biggest threat to peace. This is not a left-wing view I've given you. In fact, my own professor of international history, a right-winger, Alan Sked, actually thinks the same and has written so. And it continues. It's all very childish. It helps the money merchants, the bankers. Anyway, turning now to Greece, quite frankly, I do not see this farce lasting much longer. There will be new elections in November, and I think we're going to have to vote for anything that is completely separate from the past. I think we ought to give Tsipras a chance, but we also ought to help him to reform his own party, because there's a lot of grubbiness even in his party, although less grubbiness than in PASOK and New Democracy. But let's work together for Greece, because Greece is a beautiful country and it deserves better than it's got. Let's get rid of these quisling people from the past who are smeared and tarred with some very dirty brushes, including Mr. Samaras, I'm afraid. I'm so sorry to say that. Let's all also not lose our sense of humour. I mean, frankly, I found the whole thing slightly funny. Sometimes I just see a face on television of politician and I just burst out laughing. I can't help it. Now, on that note, I think I'm going to say goodbye, because I'm getting ready for my spearfishing. I finished all my marking and I've got 3 books to prepare. Serious books, interesting books actually. One's a thriller, which I've got to finish. And I wish all of you a very beautiful summer. I don't know whether I'll appear again for a while. I will try and improve my classical guitar again. I mean, I do play reasonably well, but for a performance, it's different. You have to go through tunes for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then that is my next my next challenge, man. But no, it'll be fun. And I'd like to give some classical guitar and maybe a few more thoughts. Just remember, please, all of us, that the more you laugh, the longer you live. God bless you. Ciao, and thank you very much, David. God bless.
Okay.
Ciao.